all the ideas from Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power, is a practical guide to acquiring, maintaining, and utilizing power based on historical examples from ancient rulers to modern leaders. It formulates 48 principles, such as conceal your intentions or crush your enemy totally, explaining how to manipulate situations, people, and psychology to dominate in any sphere. It's worth reading to understand the mechanisms of influence, protect yourself from manipulation, and develop strategic thinking, especially in business, politics, or everyday interactions, turning weaknesses into strengths. Robert Greene wrote the book in 1998, after 5 years of researching thousands of sources, including Machiavelli and Sun Tzu, inspired by his experiences in Hollywood, where he witnessed behind-the-scenes intrigues. It became a bestseller, selling over 1.2 million copies in the US, and influenced rapper 50 Cent, who co-authored The 50th Law with Greene. Greene, a former editor, turned the book into the foundation of his career, but it drew criticism for its cynicism, though praised for its historical depth. Law 1. Never outshine the master. Power requires caution in relations with superiors, so always let your boss feel superior, emphasizing their merits. Avoid showcasing your talents too brightly to prevent envy or fear, and use this to strengthen your position. Practice humility in success, attributing achievements to your boss to become indispensable. For example, the book describes a courtier who outshone the king with his talents and lost everything, while another, praising the monarch, rose high. Never outshine the master, it's a shield against falling. By observing this, you maintain power and grow subtly. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. Friends can betray out of envy, so trust cautiously, and turn enemies into allies, giving them a chance to prove loyalty. Use enemies for motivation. Hire them for key roles so they work harder. Practice emotional control, turning personal grievances into strategic advantages. For example, the book cites a ruler who entrusted power to a friend and lost the throne, unlike another who appointed an enemy as minister, who then became loyal. Friends are dangerous with envy, enemies are useful. Use them wisely to strengthen your power. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. Secrecy is a weapon of power, so mask your plans with a smokescreen, diverting attention with false objectives. Use disinformation so rivals waste their efforts, and reveal your cards only at the moment of strike. Practice a poker face, mixing truth with lies to confuse opponents. For example, the book describes a general who feigned retreat to lure the enemy into a trap and win. Hidden intentions are an advantage. Keep your plans secret to always be one step ahead. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. Silence amplifies power, so speak briefly for your words to carry weight, and avoid verbosity that reveals weaknesses. Listen more than you speak to gather information and appear wise. Practice pauses in conversation, forcing others to fill the silence, and use this for control. For example, the book mentions a diplomat whose silence forced an opponent to reveal secrets, securing an advantage. Fewer words, more power. Speak concisely to control the situation. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Reputation is the foundation of power, so protect it by spreading positive stories and neutralizing rumors. Create an image that intimidates rivals or inspires allies, and discreetly attack enemies' reputations. Practice public gestures that emphasize your strengths to strengthen your influence. For example, the book describes a leader whose reputation for invincibility made enemies surrender without a fight. Reputation is your armor. Guard it to remain powerful. Law 6. Court attention at all costs. Attention is the currency of power, so be conspicuous, creating an aura of mystery or scandal to stand out. Use unexpected actions to capture gazes, and avoid predictability. Practice creating myths about yourself, so people talk about you, amplifying your influence. For example, the book mentions an artist who shocked the public with antics, making him a star. Attention is key to power. Attract it to dominate minds. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Power lies in delegation, So hire talented people and claim their successes to grow effortlessly. Avoid doing everything yourself to conserve resources and reward subordinates to make them work harder. Practice selecting specialists whose ideas you present as your own for a rapid ascent. For example, the book describes an inventor whose ideas were stolen by his boss, who then became famous. Others' labor is your tool. Use it to elevate yourself. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Attract people to you by creating beneficial offers, or bait, so they come willingly. Use waiting tactics, so rivals expend effort approaching you, and be ready to strike. Practice creating an illusion of benefit to manipulate others' movements. For example, the book describes a general who lured an army into a trap with the promise of an easy victory. Bait is your strength. Make others come to you to control the field. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Actions are more convincing than words, so demonstrate strength through deeds, not arguments, to avoid resistance. Show results so people change their minds and avoid verbal battles. Practice silent demonstration of superiority to win respect. For example, the book describes a leader who, instead of arguing, implemented a plan, convincing skeptics with facts. Actions are the best argument. Win with them so power is undeniable. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Unhappy people spread negativity. So avoid their company to maintain motivation and success. Surround yourself with positive people who inspire you, and help the weak only from a distance. Practice selecting your environment to avoid emotional contagion and decline. For example, the book cites a businessman who associated with a loser and lost everything, unlike another who avoided such people. Contagion is a threat. Avoid the unhappy to stay at the top. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. Power is built on dependence. So create situations where others need your resources or knowledge so they cannot leave. Offer help that makes you indispensable, but don't give everything at once to maintain control. Practice gradual involvement, revealing skills as needed, so people cling to you. For example, the book describes an advisor who made the king dependent on his ideas, becoming a key player, while an independent one lost influence. Make people dependent, it's a chain of power. This way, you maintain control and strengthen your position. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Honesty and generosity disarm suspicion, so use them selectively to build trust before striking. Give gifts or confess to minor flaws so the victim relaxes, and anticipate their vulnerability. Practice calculated generosity, choosing moments when it will provide an advantage. For example, the book mentions a swindler who gave a small sum to gain trust and then defrauded a large amount. Selective honesty is a weapon of trust. Use it to disarm and dominate. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. Requests work when you appeal to self-interest, so show how help will benefit the requester, rather than relying on pity. Frame requests as investments in their interests to anticipate a positive response. Practice analyzing motives, tailoring arguments to a person's ego. For example, the book describes a politician who sought support by promising mutual benefit, which led to an alliance. Appeal to self-interest, the key to help. This way, you get support without incurring debts. Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Friendship is a mask for espionage, so build trust to gather information and anticipate moves. Ask open-ended questions. Listen attentively to identify weaknesses. Practice false intimacy, revealing little about yourself to gain more from others. For example, the book describes a spy who pretended to be a friend to learn enemy secrets and achieve victory. Pose as a friend, gather knowledge. This gives you an advantage in any game. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. Half measures with enemies are dangerous, so destroy the threat completely to avoid revenge and ensure peace. Leave no chance for resurgence. Attacking sources of strength. Practice total domination, using all resources for a decisive victory. For example, the book describes a conqueror who spared an enemy, who then returned and overthrew him, unlike another who annihilated completely. Crush your enemy, secure peace. Total victory is the guarantee of lasting power. Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Absence enhances value, so disappear sometimes to make people miss you and appreciate you more, anticipating increased influence. Create a scarcity of your presence to become desired. Practice strategic retreat, returning at the peak of interest. For example, the book mentions an artist who left the stage at the height of popularity, returning to great fanfare. Absence is an amplifier of honor. Use it to grow in the eyes of others. Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Unpredictability keeps people on edge, so change your behavior so they don't get used to you and predict your moves. Create uncertainty by alternating mercy and severity. Practice unexpected actions to maintain control. For example, the book describes a tyrant whose unpredictability paralyzed his courtiers, strengthening his power. Unpredictability is a weapon of fear. Keep them in suspended terror to dominate. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Isolation weakens, so stay engaged with the world to gather information and anticipate threats. Building fortresses makes you lose touch with reality, leaving you vulnerable. Practice engagement, collecting information from various sources to stay informed. For example, the book cites a king who isolated himself and was overthrown, unlike another who remained among the people. Isolation is a trap. Stay open to maintain power. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. Know the types of people to anticipate reactions and avoid making mistakes with dangerous individuals. Assess who you are dealing with and don't waste energy on minor figures, but be cautious with powerful ones. Practice character analysis before acting to choose the right strategy. For example, the book describes a person who offended a minor official, who then rose to power and sought revenge. Know your opponent, avoid traps. This preserves your power. Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. Commitment weakens, so remain independent to anticipate and manipulate without emotion. Do not commit to people or ideas to easily change alliances. Practice emotional detachment, using relationships as a tool. For example, the book describes a politician who became committed to an ally and lost everything when that ally betrayed him. Non-commitment is freedom. Remain free to dominate. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. Appearing dumber is a strategy to relax opponents and make them underestimate you, revealing their plans. Hide your intellect under a mask of naivety. Ask simple questions to make people talk more, exposing weaknesses. Practice this in negotiations, pretending to be inexperienced, so rivals relax and make mistakes. For example, the book describes a spy who pretended to be a fool so enemies would entrust him with secrets, leading to their downfall. Feigned stupidity is a trap for the overconfident. Use it to outwit and win. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. Surrendering at a weak moment is a tactic to avoid destruction and gather strength for a counterattack. Give up temporarily to conserve resources and use the time to plan your return. Practice feigned submission, flattering the victor to lull them into a false sense of security and strike later. For example, the book mentions a warrior who surrendered to survive and later overthrow the conqueror. Surrender is temporary weakness. Transform it into strength to return stronger. Law 23. Concentrate your forces. Concentrating forces at key points gives an advantage, so don't spread yourself thin. Strike at the opponent's weak spot. Choose targets carefully, investing all resources in one blow to achieve maximum effect. Practice situation analysis, identifying vulnerabilities, and attack suddenly. For example, the book describes an army that concentrated its forces for a breakthrough, leading to a quick victory over a superior enemy. Concentration is key to efficiency. Focus to win with fewer forces. Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. The perfect courtier flatters, adapts, and serves to rise in court or within an organization. Master the art of flattery, praise superiors, but don't overdo it and avoid gossip. Practice observing moods, adapting behavior to become indispensable. For example, The book describes a courtier who flattered the king and became a favorite, unlike an honest one who lost his head. The role of the courtier is a ladder to power. Play it skillfully to ascend. Law 25, recreate yourself. Recreating yourself is a way to refresh your image and attract attention. So change your persona when the old one is worn out. Create a new narrative about yourself, using drama or mystery to present yourself in a favorable light. Practice radical changes, like a change of style or role, to confuse rivals. For example, the book describes an actress who recreated herself from the ashes, regaining popularity. Recreation is rebirth. Change yourself to stay at the top. Law 26, keep your hands clean. Clean hands are the guarantee of reputation, so use others for dirty work to avoid blame. Find scapegoats for failures and executors for actions, remaining in the shadows. Practice delegating risks to preserve an image of innocence. For example, the book mentions a politician who blamed a subordinate for a scandal, preserving his own reputation. Clean hands are a shield. Keep them so power remains untarnished. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. People's belief is a tool for creating a cult. So create a myth about yourself, promising miracles or ideals. Use rituals and symbols to strengthen devotion and avoid disappointments. Practice charismatic leadership, inspiring faith in your mission. For example, the book describes a guru who created a sect of believers, gaining power through their devotion. The need to believe is your weapon. Play on it to gather an army of followers. Law 28. Enter action with boldness. Boldness inspires fear and respect, so act decisively, even in uncertainty, to appear strong. Take calculated risks to intimidate opponents and attract allies. Practice confident gestures to make your boldness seem natural. For example, the book mentions an adventurer who boldly seized power when others hesitated. Boldness is a magnet for power. Act with it to dominate. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. Planning all the way to the end prevents failures, so consider all consequences and alternatives. Visualize the chain of events, preparing for opponents' responses. Practice long-term thinking so every step leads to the ultimate goal. For example, the book describes a conspirator who planned a coup down to the details, succeeding unlike an impulsive one. Planning is the path to victory. Plan to the end to avoid traps. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Effortless accomplishments seem magical, so hide your hard work, presenting success as easy to evoke envy and fear. Practice spontaneity in actions, rehearsing in solitude to appear a genius. Avoid complaining about difficulties, focusing on the result. For example, the book mentions an artist who concealed his efforts to make his work seem divine, increasing their value. Effortlessness is the illusion of power. Create it to enhance your power. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. Controlling options is a way to manipulate, offering choices where all lead to your advantage, so opponents think they are deciding themselves. Create an illusion of freedom by limiting options to your own and predict the outcome. Practice this in negotiations, offering alternatives where the worst is frightening and the best is your goal. For example, the book describes a merchant who offered a buyer 2 expensive options, so he would choose one instead of a cheap one that was not mentioned. Control of options is the cunning of power. Make them play with your cards to always win. Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. People's fantasies are a weakness. Use them by promising dreams to win loyalty and ensure devotion. Create illusions of an ideal, avoiding reality, so people follow you. Practice building myths where you are the hero of their dreams, to manipulate the masses. For example, the book mentions a charlatan who sold immortality elixirs, profiting from fantasies of eternal life. Fantasies are a hook for minds. Play on them to rule hearts. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. The Achilles heel is a weakness. Use it to break the strong and predict their downfall. Analyze people, identifying fears or desires, and strike at the vulnerable spot. Practice covert testing, provoking reactions to find a crack in their armor. For example, The book describes an intriguer who discovered a rival's fear of disgrace and spread rumors to destroy him. The Achilles heel is the weapon of victory. Find it to strike with certainty. Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. Royalty is in behavior, so act majestically for people to see you as a leader and obey. Create an aura of grandeur through gestures, clothing, and manners. Anticipating respect, practice a regal posture to command authority without words. For example, the book describes a beggar who dressed as a king and deceived everyone, becoming a ruler. Royalty is a mask of power. Act as such to become king in the eyes of others. Law 35. Master the art of timing. Time is an ally. Master it by acting at the right moment to ensure success. Wait for the opportune second to strike, avoiding haste. Practice patience, analyzing cycles to strike at the peak of an opponent's weakness. For example, the book describes a warrior who waited for a storm to attack when the enemy was vulnerable. Timing is an art. Master it to win effortlessly. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Ignoring is revenge. Disdain the unattainable to conserve energy and ensure peace of mind. Reject what is not yours, focusing on what's available. Practice indifference to losses to maintain dignity and strength. For example, the book mentions a philosopher who disdained wealth to live freely, unlike the greedy who lost everything. Disdain the unattainable, maintain power. Ignoring is the strongest revenge. Law 37. Create compelling spectacles. Spectacles captivate. Create them to attract attention and ensure the loyalty of the crowd. Produce shows with drama and symbols to manipulate emotions. Practice staging events where you are the hero to strengthen your influence. For example, the book describes a ruler who organized festivals so the people would love him, forgetting about taxes. Spectacles are a tool of control. Stage them to rule the masses. Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. Hide your thoughts, behave like everyone else, to ensure safety and avoid isolation. Adapt to the crowd externally, preserving internal freedom. Practice conformity in behavior to infiltrate and manipulate. For example, the book mentions a heretic who pretended to be a believer to survive and spread ideas. Behave like others survive. Hide your thoughts to act freely. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. Uncertainty frightens. Create chaos for opponents to make mistakes and anticipate their downfall. Stir up the waters with false signals to confuse enemies. Practice disorientation to strike at a moment of weakness. For example, the book describes a general who spread rumors of an attack so the enemy would tire and surrender. Chaos is your weapon. Create it to catch fish. Law 40. Despise the free lunch. Freebies are a trap. Despise them to avoid obligations and ensure freedom. Nothing comes for free, so pay to maintain independence. Practice refusing handouts so you don't become indebted. For example, the book mentions a merchant who accepted a free gift and lost his business due to debt. The free lunch is a chain. Despise it to remain free. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. Power requires independence. So don't follow great predecessors to avoid living in their shadow. Create your own path. Free yourself from influence by changing traditions and creating a new image to appear original. Practice innovation, introducing fresh ideas so people see you as a leader, not a follower. For example, the book describes a king's son who lived in his father's shadow and lost the throne, unlike another who changed policies and became great. A great man's shadow is a trap. By stepping out of it, you gain your own power. Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Strike the leader to disperse the group. So focus on the key figure, predicting chaos among followers. Identify the shepherd, the one who holds everyone together, and attack their weaknesses. Practice isolating the leader, spreading doubt so the flock loses unity. For example, the book describes a revolutionary who arrested the tribal chief, leading to the collapse of the resistance. Strike the shepherd, destroy the flock. This is a quick path to control. Law 4043. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Power over hearts and minds is stronger than coercion, so win loyalty through emotions and beliefs, ensuring devotion. Use empathy to understand needs and offer solutions that touch hearts. Practice a personal approach, helping individually to create an emotional connection. For example, the book describes a king who won over his people with mercy, unlike a tyrant who lost everything due to fear. Hearts and minds are the foundation of power. By conquering them, you create eternal loyalty. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The mirror effect is reflecting an opponent's behavior to disarm or enrage them, predicting a loss of control. Copy gestures and words to create a connection or provoke, using it for manipulation. Practice precise mirroring in conversations to influence emotions. For example, the book mentions a diplomat who mirrored insults to enrage an enemy and make them make mistakes. The mirror effect is a weapon of psychology. Use it to control reactions. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Changes cause fear, so preach them, but implement gradually to ensure acceptance. Talk about reforms while maintaining old forms so people feel comfortable. Practice masking innovations as traditions to avoid resistance. For example, the book describes a reformer who promised changes, but changed little, which ensured support. Changes are step by step. Preach, but don't shock, so power strengthens. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. Perfection causes envy, so show weaknesses to appear human and ensure loyalty. Display minor flaws, so people don't envy you. Practice modesty, admitting mistakes to avoid isolation. For example, the book describes a king who showed weakness and won love, unlike an ideal one who was overthrown. Imperfection is a shield from envy. Show it to remain beloved. Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. Excess leads to downfall, so stop at the peak to ensure lasting success. Don't be greedy after victory to avoid revenge. Practice periodic retreat, leaving room for maneuver. For example, the book describes a conqueror who took too much and lost everything, unlike a moderate one. Stopping is the wisdom of victory. Know your limits so power endures. Law 48. Assume formlessness. Formlessness is adaptability. Change like water to ensure survival amidst changes. Avoid rigidity, adapting to situations to remain elusive. Practice flexibility, changing strategies so opponents cannot predict you. For example, the book describes a warrior who changed tactics like water, defeating the strong. Formlessness is the highest power. Be like water to flow to victory. This is such a wonderful book. I have compiled a separate list of all the important theses from this book, along with all the techniques and tools, and created a step-by-step action plan that you can immediately implement in your life. You can get all this in my community, Place of Power. There, you will find a detailed text analysis with similar lists for each book being reviewed. The community has already thoroughly analyzed and made available to you hundreds of world bestsellers with a new analysis released every day. Follow the link in the description and use it.